Today we have a speaker that I think you guys are really going to enjoy because I had the chance, like I usually do, to preview his talk for you. He's a graduate from the University of Michigan. He graduated with an engineering degree, but that's not the path he chose. And that's what makes this fun, and that's why we continue to seek out people who have been hyper successful but haven't necessarily followed one prescribed path. Marc Parrish fits this example quite well. He went from industry into investing, and he's going to tell you all the things that you should know and pay attention to, but might either not want to listen to or be afraid to. So please absorb his wisdom because it's spot on. I'm going to let him take the stage. Then we're going to have a little Q&A. You guys know the drill. He's an alum, so give him a warm maize and blue welcome, Marc Parrish.
So first I'm going to do a mic check. Can everybody hear me? Yes. All the people in the back say yes? Yes? It's a big high energy yes in the back. So I think I've got a laser pointer here and it goes all the way to the back, right? So if somebody's sleeping, they're going to get a laser pointer if I can see you. So I'm going to make this a little bit more Socratic. People know what Socratic means. It means audience participation, right? They say, I ask a question, you guys can shout back the answer. So the first thing, because I know this is a class on entrepreneurism, how many people are engineers, by the way? Just hold up your hands. So almost everybody. How many people are not engineers? Wow. What are you in? Oh, computer science. Well, that's kind of engineering, right? More or less.
House. How
many people wanted to be a dance major? How many people took a dance class? How many people can dance? The computer science major can. So I wanted to start out by, because this is a class on entrepreneurship, to put up the word entrepreneur. How many people can define entrepreneur? What's a definition of entrepreneur? Does anybody know? Anybody shout out one? Networking, okay. So I heard a good one once that an entrepreneur is somebody that works 18 hours for himself, so he doesn't have to work 8 hours for somebody else. People resonate? Is that good? So the actual definition is this: a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risk to do so. That's pretty boring, right? I like the first one that I said. How many people like the first one versus the technical definition? So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to expect that. You're going to work harder than you do if you just, take a normal job for a paycheck. You're going to take more risk on. Can anybody think of a synonym for entrepreneur? Innovator? Okay, that's a good one. What's another wacky one? Crazy? Maybe. What's that? Disruptive. Okay, that's one that I hear a lot. When I see deals come in, a lot of people use that word. I'm a disruptor. What does disruptor mean? That's a tough one, right? So this is what they say. How about businessman, enterpriser, speculator, tycoon? Nobody said that. Agree with tycoon? Any of them? How about this one? Whiz kid. How many people are whiz kids? Just one hand? You put up two hands, actually. 1, 2. Anybody else a whiz kid? 3. Can I get anybody to join them? What's a whiz kid? I don't know. That's a good one. You got to do that. Wheeler dealer, that's another good one. Impresario, that's a little, that's a $20 word, right? Promoter, deal maker, high flyer, hustler. How about that one? No? I'm a hustler. I'm an entrepreneur. You don't go into a VC and say, I'm a hustler. They'd go, what? You could say, I hustle. I do things that way. So let me take you through another one. Where did this word appear? Does anybody know where it came from? What's that? French. Yell it out. I didn't hear it. French. Very good. Did people know that? How many people knew it came from French? How many French majors? How many people took French? Wow, the same people put their hands up. So it does. It comes from French. And it means entreprendre, which means to undertake, right? And it entered English in the early 19th century as a totally different thing, denoting the director of musical institution. So here's a good question. How many people have to take writing classes as engineers, right? What's it called, like Engine 103, something like that, right? How many people have, what's the name of the class called? 100? And what do you do in it? You read books, right? You write papers? Yes? Yell it out. No, you don't write papers. Somebody writes your papers for you? No, right? So I'm going to ask you a question. This is the most important part of this slide. How many points in Scrabble is this word? 100? So it's 12 letters long, right? This is the most important part. It's 14 points. How many people play Scrabble? Kind of a few, right? You do? Do you win? Good. This is a future entrepreneur, right? An engineer that can talk, that can spell things, that can play Scrabble. So this is the point of my talk today. My talk today is to try to get you, I can't get on stage and tell you guys something that you're not going to say, oh shit. It was funny. I swam here at the University of Michigan, actually, a long time ago. And the guys that I meet who are swimmers now, they know that you achieved a certain level, so they're sort of respectful for you for that. When I come into a stage like this, most people say, geez, what can he teach me? How am I, Mark Twain did a thing where he said, when I was 18, my father was the stupidest man alive. People know this quote? And by the time I was 21, I was surprised how much he'd learned. And the question is, how much have you guys changed with this? What can you take away from this? I can tell you just what my journey was. And this is my timeline. I start here. Not in this room. We didn't have a room as nice as this. This is some of the best AV equipment I've seen. But I started here on this North Campus. And as I was telling them, I walked across the diag here when there was no diag, there was no bell tower. We had one sidewalk that went in the wintertime like this. That's the way you got from one end to the other. The diag was one ag, wasn't two. And people would start peeling off in the wintertime towards the entrances to the building. So all you saw, I called them cow tracks, and I called it the tundra, because I had to, I would come from swim practice all the way up here, and then I'd have to walk across this damn diag, and it was just insane. Now you guys have a really nice place here, right? I mean, if I was a prospective engineering student and I came here, this is like a space station. It's an amazing complex here. You don't get this kind of access, I think, at the normal, collegiate experience, I think. So I was very lucky. And I did a whole bunch of things. I worked for a lot of organizations. I worked for Fortune 300 companies. I worked for really small startups where there were 5 guys in a room. And, it's a very eclectic experience. I lived in Australia and Latin America, and I settled in San Francisco, which I call the Olympics of tech. Why do I call it the Olympics of tech? Why do you think?
It's the best competition in the world.
That's good. Anybody else? Throw it out, guys.
Competing with the best entrepreneurs there.
They're the best entrepreneurs. That's right. But I think, there's access to capital. There's the ability to fail. I mean, there are a lot of things that go on in the Bay Area, that, in tech, which I find really wacky sometimes. And, there's very interesting. I went to UCLA as well for grad school, and people in entertainment go, oh, I passed on that movie, right? Or I passed on that role. And people in Silicon Valley say, God, I passed on that company, right? I didn't think you could make it. There's a company called Twilio. How many people know Twilio? Not a lot. What does Twilio do? I'm not going to ask you because I already asked. How about you?
Yeah, so it's like integrating some kind of like phone systems.
Good, that's good. Anybody else? So Twilio is a SaaS company. These companies didn't exist in multitudes like they do today. And this guy, who is a Michigan grad, by the way.
We've actually been there. We took our students out there.
Awesome company. Awesome company. And you got to go online. There was a guy, he did a pitch back, I think, in 2008. This company worth a couple $1 billion now. And he was in a coffee shop, and the guy he was pitching it to videotaped his pitch. You can go look at it online. And it's just so funny to see this, and the guy passed on it. And it's the exact vision that is today worth a couple $1 billion, right? And I was just telling some guys backstage, I see this all the time, guys making companies, making markets out of things I never thought could have been done. That really only happens in Silicon Valley. And I've been there a couple of decades now, and I got to tell you, I don't hit one company there, not one, that doesn't have a Michigan engineer in it. Do you believe me? It's absolutely true. Yeah, clap for that. And on the flip side of that coin, I never met one that had an Ohio State grad in it. I knew that would get the biggest applause. So how many people think we're going to win that Ohio State game? Oh my God, the converted. I love it. And your hand is up all the way up. That's good. So that's why I call it the Olympic of Tech. If you want to be in the Olympics of the performing arts, where do you go? New York. That's where you go. Or LA, right? The Olympics of media is there. You know, kind of, there are things in America that all kinds of places that things are known for. If you want to be in the Olympics of the car industry, you come here, right? But that's, if you want to be in the Olympics of Tech, San Francisco is the place to go. So where do I go from here? This was a thing. I avoid the tie. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Any of you guys want to wear a tie? You do? One guy. There was another hand up here. Why do I say I don't want to wear a tie? Because I did wear a tie. When I graduated, you want to wear a tie? Okay, go ahead.
Because it restricts you, and the suit keeps you looking like professional.
Well, I don't mind the suit, but I worked for a company, Accenture. Anybody know them? That's when I first got out of college, and I got recruited by them, and I thought it was great, and I had to wear a tie every day. And for me, it's not where I fit in. That's a huge company now. But it was one of those things where I felt like it was more about exactly how you were presenting to your peers and to a client rather than getting things done. That's the way that I looked at it, right? So that's why I came to a certain conclusion. I did strict engineering for about 5 years. I actually got a PE degree. Do they still have those? So I could sign drawings, you know, worked hard for that. And it was funny, now I saw some guys who had cards where they had PE degrees, right? Some people put PhD at the end, right, when they have a PhD. In Silicon Valley, not a lot of people put this on their cards anymore. But for me, that was a big deal. I felt like I was approved as an engineer. And then I went back to business school. And, you know, I kind of decided that I wanted to go a different way. And why did I do that? I said that, you know, I liked interacting with people, kind of a people person. I like telling jokes more than most people. And for me, marketing was kind of the way to go. But when I went back to business school, people were saying, I want to go work for who afterwards? CPG companies, right? What does CPG stand for?
Consumer product goods.
Packaged goods. Very good, almost. Perfect. So I was here on Thursday night when I arrived, and they had a thing in the business school that I ran into, and most of the people recruiting there were CPG companies, like Procter & Gamble, like Land O'Lakes Butter, and I could never see myself doing that. But tech marketing is totally different. And what I decided to do, and as I've gone on in life, is to kind of cut a different path on this, and to see that what was really important in life was, to me, see if we can go one further here, to plug in and connect, right? To be able to peek around the corner and see what the new trend was and try to ride that. And I think that that's one of the things, I'm just going to tell you stuff that I wish I knew when I graduated from engineering school that would have made it a shortcut someplace. If somebody could have mentored me in this, because I took a totally different path, right? I went to Accenture, then afterwards I went to work at a family-owned business that did design, build, engineering in Puerto Rico, and took professional engineering exams there, went back to business school, and then decided I wanted to move to Australia. And I did. I lived there for about 5 years, and I started a business down there that did telephony, which is really boring now. It did dialogic cards and video conferencing and audio conferencing when that was a big deal, right? Wow, you can get 2 people together on the same phone line? Unbelievable! You can do that on your cell phone now, right? From there, I came back to the U.S. I worked for a company called On Sale, which got purchased by Amazon, that was auctions, internet auctions. And from there, I went to Palm. Does anybody know Palm? You know what a Palm Pilot is? Not the old guys. 1, 2. What's a Palm Pilot?
It's kind of like that. It's like a tablet, except it's much smaller and used for storing contacts.
Did you ever see one?
Yeah, my father had one.
My grandfather had one a long time ago. So we defined a market, and it was called a PDA, Personal Digital Assistant. And these guys, Tom, you remember this, right? You had a graffiti. Yeah. So you wrote in kind of shorthand, and it, amazing, printed letters. So an E was like this. And you go, whoa, 1 stroke and I can get an E out. Wow. This was really innovative. We were one of, and Tom, you can tell me this, right? We were one of the premier brands in the world. We also...
Indeed, I think I had every iteration of the product.
Every iteration of the product, right? The Palm, Palm 3, Palm 5, I can't remember, 705, 505. We had a ton of them. We introduced the color screen. How long ago is this? How long, guys? What year were you born in? I
was born in 96.
96. This was in 2001. It's not so long ago, right? You guys know the movie Wall Street? You seen Wall Street? How many people have seen Wall Street? A couple of people. Go back and look at that. That was done in 80-something, 84 maybe? And Michael Douglas is on a beach, and he picks up a cell phone. He's walking on the beach in the Hamptons. And it's a brick. It's this big. And I guarantee you, everybody, when they went into, the guys that saw it, into the movie theater at that time, they were like, whoa, that's a cell phone. I got my first cell phone in 1993. You got an anecdote about that?
I had one of those bricks too.
Right. It was a Motorola phone, right? We thought, people were, really, can I take a look at that? It was a bar conversation when you brought one of these things in.
You leave that on the table and it's like the geekiest move you could do, but you thought you were so cool because you literally put a giant brick with a big rubber antenna on the table, and that was your mark.
Really. It was like, you were having an invasion conversation someplace. So Palm then moved from this PDA space into what we call smartphones. We invented the first smartphone. It was called Trio. And not many people remember this, right? They think that smartphones started with Apple. We launched the Trio in 2003. 4 years later, Apple started with the iPhone. Beautiful UI, great channel they got in. They decided to do their own stores, right? These are things that you guys take for granted, but this is not too long ago. This is a blink of an eye in tech speak, right? So being able to peek around these corners and look for the new, ride the trends, this is really important in your career. It's very, very important for you guys to think about what's the next thing on the horizon that I don't have to be swept by the current, but I can think of a solve in that. So that's what I'm going to do in this talk, which I've taken a long time to clear my throat. The other thing that I heard, loud and clear over time, and it took a long time for me to understand this, was creativity is a big part of engineering. It's a very big part, really important. Surround yourself with as many creative people, people that think outside the box, people that just don't want to get a paycheck someplace. They want to actually do something important. They want to, take ownership of things. This is an important part of a career, not only because you're going to do something great, but because you're going to be a lot happier doing it. So I heard creativity described this way. It's allowing yourself to make mistakes, and then the art of it is knowing which ones to keep, right? Picasso didn't become famous for pushing every sketch out there, right? But over the course of time, people have a lot of Picasso sketches because he became famous, and then they found all the crap that he did before, and now that's all worth a lot of money. But most of it is just drivel. And then really at the end of it is enjoy the process, the journey and the process. And you deal a lot with people who research, especially Cal is really good at this, at researching what makes people happy. And it's really very, very simple. You get something to do, something to love, and something to look forward to. It's very, very simple. So as you guys are pushing forward, very ambitious careers, this is where you're headed. And, just remember that, I guess, decades from now when you're thinking, what was it all about? Who is this guy? There's got to be one guy. Who? Wayne Gretzky. One guy? How many people knew Wayne Gretzky? Now, how many people knew that was him? 3. Yeah. This is what this guy did. These are records still on the books. 25 records still on the books. Like, is there ever going to be an athlete in any sport that dominated the way this guy did? No, I don't think so. And I'm in hockey land. When I'm in non-hockey land, people really don't know this stuff. How would you like to be most consecutive MVP awards 8 years in a row? How does that happen? Is there one guy in Major League Baseball that does that? Crazy, huh? Very impressive. So let me give you a little bit of Wayne Gretzky wisdom. And I think a lot of sports philosophy applies, right? Good hockey player plays where the puck is. The great hockey player plays where the puck is going to be. You agree? You agree? So here's the question. Where's the puck going to be? No end of things that you guys can be involved in. No end, right? There are really no end of things you guys can find interesting. The question is, where's the market moving? These are the types of things that I see with deals that come through, of guys that have a vision, they come in, they do a pitch, they say, we've got a little bit of traction, or we've got a big idea. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over 10 of them. Here's the first one, mobile. What's this? Do you guys see these kinds of kids with cell phones now? Yeah, I do. Like a couple of years ago, you guys were in high school and you were begging for a cell phone, right? How many people had a cell phone in high school? Almost everybody. Go back to the class that's probably graduated 2 years ago. I guarantee you none of those guys in high school had a cell phone. Now it's pushing down further and further and further. Now 10-year-olds are taking cell phones to school, right? Can you imagine a 5th grade class and the teacher goes, turn off your cell phones. It happens, right? So mobile is just exploding, and mobile is going to explode for the next 20 years. And why is that? Because there's permeation outside the United States. There's a lot of, there's a lot of momentum behind it. When was the first cell phone, the first smartphone? 2003. When did Apple make it popular? 2007, right? It's not 8 years. 8 years is 2 graduating classes of Michigan, right? And the whole world changed from that. I got a great stat around this. How many people have cell phones? How many? No, in the world. How many people in the world? 7 billion. How many people have cell phones? 4 billion. 3.5 billion people use a toothbrush. There's a good set of people that have a cell phone and not a toothbrush. Right? Think about that. There are more people with cell phones than running water in the world. That's an important stat, right? This is peeking around a corner? No, the corner's already here. This is what you guys are going to be dealing with in the next couple of years. Okay, so people are getting the theme of this, right? So we're going to go on. What's IoT? Internet of Things. What does that mean? Connected devices. I'm going to call on somebody in the back over there. How about that? What is IoT? He's not paying attention. He's on his cell phone. What do you think? So
Don't make me walk up there. Somebody from the back
mic.
better yell.
He's got a big mic. Yell it out. So now you've got technology that can be embedded into everything, right? Everything can be connected. So what are the kinds of things that you want to connect, right? People have, there are 32 million cameras in Great Britain, right? There are about 55 million people. So they have one camera for every 2 people. Those are connected devices, right? How many people, I got a good example of a connected device which was not connected before. What about the bus system that brought you guys up here, right? They've got mobile technology on every single one of them so you know where it is. You think I had that when I was in school? We were waiting, freezing to death, waiting for a bus back on Central Campus to bring us up here. Freezing to death. You can tell that had a big impact on me, right? It's the weather. But all things are going to be connected. Lots of things. How many people have a wearable on them? Fitbit. How many people have a Fitbit on? Right? Wearables becoming much more, advanced, right? The Internet of Things is connecting everything. What does that do? That has cascading effects where people are going to have to analyze that data. They're going to have to push forward with more tech that gets low cost. So you can put them in every shipping container. You can put them in boxes of paper towels that are going out to retail. You can know where all your inventory is. Anybody have a tile? You know what a tile is? You have a tile. Oh, you're so advanced.
Early adopter.
Early adopter. I see people with tile now putting it on their bike because if the bike's stolen, I know where exactly it is. I saw a guy with a tile on his dog the other day just so that he knows where he is. Like, is he outside or inside? That's the Internet of Things. That's going to radically change your lives. Social. I'm not sure if anybody here has a social handle. How many people are on Facebook every day? Yeah. How many people are on Instagram every day? How many people are on Twitter every day? Even fewer. Wow. So, 80% of all social content was produced in the last 18 months. There were 100 million people that got onto Instagram in the last 6 months. 75% of those people were outside the US. This is radically changing how people communicate. Radically changing. Another one, what's that? Google Car. I see these all the time in Mountain View. All the time. Why? Because they're only allowed in Mountain View to drive around. In that one city. So I'll tell you an anecdote on this. I was at a coffee shop, Pete's Coffee, if you guys have been in the Bay Area. That's kind of a brand from the Bay Area. And they have these two, an intersection of San Antonio and El Camino. El Camino is a very famous road that goes up the center. And we saw 3 Google cars in about 20 minutes come to the stoplight and then do a U-turn and go back down El Camino. And the guy I was having a coffee with goes, "That's amazing. I guess they're doing the same route." I said, "No, that's the edge of Mountain View. They're not allowed in Palo Alto. They can't drive past it, so they always have to do a U-turn." So if you take a look, Google on the road in Mountain View, I think they've done 1.9 million miles with these things. This is their new car. They produced this car. On the inside, it doesn't have a steering wheel. It's got a joystick. And guess what? The guys sitting in the car, they've got 2 guys in the car, they're like this. They're driving around like this. It's really amazing to see the first time. And now everybody in Mountain View has accepted this, right? How many people want to go into automotive? I was a mechanical engineer, and a lot of people did. Is there any hand? Not a single person? 2, 3, 4, yeah, about 10 to 15, right? This is what you will be working on. By 2026, almost every car in America, and this is, some people are saying it's going to be further than that. That's only 10 years out. Every car in America will have self-driving, and they're going to go through phases to get there, right? They're going to have assisted driving, which they already have, right? A lot of these accident prevention things that some of the brands have, I think that's kind of interesting. So, when I say, how do you ride a trend, that's a trend, guys, that if you're in automotive, you will see. Do you think that the car companies are going to produce these cars? Or will Apple and Google, Microsoft, right? There's already a car company that didn't exist a couple years ago. Do people know what it is? Tesla. Everybody's heard of it. Why? What? Speak up. Because it's awesome. What's another thing? Because I guarantee you it has not gone bankrupt twice. But, that stock was worth more than, the car companies at one time. They're not producing nearly as many cars. They're very expensive. But when you get behind with the wheel of one of those cars, has anybody been behind the wheel of one? What's the experience? awesome, right? There's no other word to describe it. How much power do you have when you press down that? It's amazing. It'll snap your head off, right? Because it's direct energy conversion. You hit it, and you don't have gas being pumped in and fuel-air mixtures. This is what I did when I was in college, fuel-air mixtures. And you have to look up, these points at which the thing was going to combust, at what pressure and what fuel-air mixture. You think kids are going to be doing that behind you guys? Never. They're going to go, what's an internal combustion engine? That's what they're going to ask, right? And when you talk about, how far you got to go and what you're going to, it's just amazing. We're going to be putting in electric fuel stations, right? Instead of gas stations. And you guys all grew up with gas stations. I grew up with gas stations. I grew up when the catalytic converter came in. Do people know what that is, right? That kept a little bit of pollution out of the air. It's really amazing the things that have happened. Okay. What's that? This is a museum in Manchester. And all these things were 3D printed. A bicycle. They had a human heart over there. Anybody seen a 3D printer in work? Yeah? Almost everybody. If I had asked this question 3 years ago, I bet you 3 hands would have gone up. That's how radical this thing has changed. I went to go see, do people know Mythbusters? Yeah, almost everybody. So Adam Savage, who's one of the guys, he gave a talk at the Castro Theater week before last, and he brought on, they showed all kinds of stuff on stage. It was for tested.com. Did people know that? Seen the videos of it? And the deputy director of NASA came out. It was a woman who grew up in Montana, and she talked about next generation spacesuits. The guy, The Martian, the movie The Martian? So the guy that wrote that lives in Silicon Valley, and he wrote it chapter by chapter, and he had scientists then critique the chapters before it went out. So he was able to say, is this realistic or not? So 3D printing, she said, you know something? We are not going to take vehicles out into space. Costs too much money to just get them off the Earth. What we're going to do is take a 3D printer to Mars. And then with basalt, we're going to make a car up there. She said, a usual rocket engine had 2,200 parts in it, and with 3D printing that they can now do in metal. Do people know this? It's not just plastic, they can do it in metal. They do a rocket engine with 160 parts. That's radical change, right? So these are the things coming. What about this one? Data and analytics. I just had a conversation backstage. Some people are in the School of Information, right? No, not you. Some people are. Some people. And School of Information deals with large data sets, right? And this is something that I've been dealing with in an ancillary way for a very long time. You're going to have to do tons and tons of data crunching no matter what you go into, no matter what field you go into. This is just a truism. So what I say is it's going to be advanced, pervasive, and invisible. You're going to see right now, people know the NSA, right? What does the NSA stand for? National... It's security, but it is surveillance. You're exactly right. National Surveillance Agency. I got to use that one. Can I use that one? Do I have permission to use it? Okay, that's right. That's the best one I've heard in a week. So they're building this huge place out in the West, right, to basically crunch data. Billions of dollars they're putting into, the biggest supercomputer in the world was built by the Chinese intelligence service. But I see people all day long, they're crunching data sets which 10 years ago would not have been possible to crunch, and they do it in fractions of the time. And what's the reason for that? Well, a lot of it is because of this. Because you have web scale. What is this the logo to? AWS. How do you guys know that? How do you know that? So AWS is not that old, actually. And it used to be in venture capital, you had to give a lot of money for an A round for an idea, just for people to build things. And part of it was they had to pay for infrastructure. They had to pay for their own servers. And they had to pay for people to install them. And they had to have DevOps. People know what DevOps is, right? You had to run them. Now you don't have to do that. You say, I want a server, I'll spin up a server. How long does it take? I can do it on my cell phone right now. I have an AWS app here, and I can spin up servers. It's amazing. That just didn't happen before. So what's happened is the cost for all you guys to start companies has gone way down, way, way down. You can spin up ideas, and you can test them and throw them away. Remember, that's the art of it, is knowing what to throw away. And all these companies are thinking like Amazon, Google, and Facebook. They had these IT things internally that then they turned out on the world. How many people use Google Docs? Almost every hand. How many people use Microsoft Word? Half the hands. 10 years ago, people would have said, what's Google Docs? What is this thing? What is this thing you speak of that people would put their documents on, on the cloud? The cloud was a big thing just 5 years ago, right? People were saying, how does that work? So is that resonating with you guys? That when 15 years ago, entrepreneurs didn't have the capability of doing that. They had to build their little universe of infrastructure. They had to go put servers someplace. They had to manage them, make sure they were up all the time. I invested in a company called Cluster K. This is a great story where, he's a Russian PhD. He's a PhD from the US, but he's Russian. And he came up with this idea because Amazon has all of these servers. And they have to keep building out infrastructure to keep just ahead of where demand is going to be. Why? Because they don't want Microsoft or Google taking market share from them, or IBM, right? So they have about a third of all cloud infrastructure computing. Amazon does. But what they did is they have excess capacity all the time. So what they were doing is doing a thing called the spot market. And the spot market meant you could get 90% off the price of a server, right? If you didn't mind Amazon taking it away with 2 minutes notice. So what people were doing was doing non-critical back-end processes that were very computing intensive, like crunching log files and things like that. But if the server was taken away, they would have to kind of restart that, right? So it was non-mission critical. And what this guy said was, why can't I just spin up some excess capacity around the world and just keep a service level of like 99%? Because if you lost one, then you'd have excess capacity. It's still less than actually renting the servers for good. This small little idea, all of a sudden, guys were jumping on board with this thing. Amazon got spooked. And what did they do? What do you do when you get spooked by a small startup?
Bought 'em.
You buy them, that's right. Get them out of the way. It's what the mafia does, right? Get rid of that guy. That guy's a threat. These are the kinds of things you got to think about, right? I mean, I am really amazed that you guys, not very many people knew Wayne Gretzky, but everybody knew this, right? Because it's making a big impact on you. All right, one of the last ones, security. Whoops, I'm going to go too far here. People think about security now? Everybody shop at Target before? Yeah, laughter. Everybody, ha ha ha, what happened to them? That's a big deal. That's a big, big deal. And having worked for retailers, I worked for Barnes & Noble. We started up the Nook division there.
I thought for sure you were going to go with the Ashley Madison example.
Ooh, I'm on a politically correct campus here, right? How far could I go with that? Let me put it another way. There are other examples. So security is a very big deal. And what usually companies do with security is, what do? They do front-end defense. They do perimeter. Keep them out. Keep them out from behind. Now I see a whole, these are called pen tests. People know this, penetration tests, right? So there's a company that I'm involved with which actually does this, and it's called Bug Crowd, and they crowdsource this. They have, people know the term black hat and white hat, right? Good guys, but they have these kind of white hats who are black hats, who are guys around the world who get bug bounties for seeing that they can penetrate your thing. There's also another company called Backtrace, which is a couple of guys, a couple of years out of school that decided to say, hey, you know something? I'm going to go sit in the back end and I'm going to see if anybody's doing anything weird on one of these servers that shouldn't have been done. So they're just analyzing log files all the time because that means that there's a Trojan horse sitting back there and they can identify and shut down, and isolate and shut down the server, right? So you're going to do that from the perimeter defense to these kind of multifaceted defense. But security is a big deal, very big deal. Getting a lot of venture capital goes towards security. Okay, this is one I think you're all interested in, right? Drones. How many people like drones? I came back, I think it was last year, to the, what do you call it, the hackathon, the M-Hacks. And we were in the atrium over here, and there were drones just going back and forth across the atrium, right? So there's a lot of stuff that drones can do, like, you know, inspection and delivery. You know that Amazon is trying this, and, you know, there are others that are trying to do delivery with drones. Like, how's that going to work, right? What's the FAA going to think when there are thousands of drones above our cities? What are we going to think when a drone comes over and a guy's sitting in the diag and something drops out of the sky for him? Right? But this is what they think the future is going to be. Anybody interested in going into this, by the way? It's good. Smart machines. So this is one. These are Samsung washer dryer. This, to me, and this is the last one, is really, really disruptive. Because you've got to decide how connected you want these smart machines to be. That camera, do I want this camera to be connected to everything? So how much is it going to cost me to connect it to everything so that he can live stream, right? Like GoPro. How could GoPro be a live streaming thing versus, you know, having to, they do this. There are companies that are doing this. And if you think about just about everything, the piano, right? The door, this sound system, the lights, what do I connect and what don't I? What's going to be a smart machine that's going to be able to take the next thing? So their vision of it was, when your laundry's done, it notifies you on the app, right? Or you've seen these things called Kivos, which are a key to your front door, which are Bluetooth enabled, and you just bring your phone close to it and the door opens as you're walking towards it. It's kind of cool, right? So a lock company did that. That's not, people don't think of like forward-leaning tech companies as being lock companies, right? But they've got something. That's a smart machine. So that's the last trend I'm going to give you. But there are three important things that I wish somebody would have told me. This is the time you've got to wake up. The first one is, the best product almost never wins. The Trio was by far the best product. By far the best product. It didn't win. The Nook, anybody know the Nook? These are products I did. The Nook, anybody have a Nook? Right? That was a better product. I can show you the roadmap how we did everything better than Amazon. We brought out the first color screen, the first tablet around reading. We brought out the glow light, right? The backlit one. We brought out a $99 e-reader, right? Touch screen. Amazon, we blew them away. Blew them away. We were like a year and a half ahead of these guys. Now, most of the people that worked on that are working for Amazon. So the best product almost never wins. Ideas count less than execution. I think you'd agree with this, right, Tom?
Absolutely.
You have a great idea. I've got notebooks full of great ideas. If you guys want great ideas, I'm willing to give out lots of them for free. Most of them are about the execution. It's about the team you put into place. It's about knowing what you don't know, right? And it's about pushing into areas that you feel a little bit uncomfortable with, but you know the guy that's going to get you out of it, right? And the last one is the best storytellers almost always win. That's why I went into marketing, tech marketing, because I can tell you, having worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of startups, most of them go through this. How many people here are thinking about a startup? About half. How many people have another engineer they're talking to about it? Almost every guy. And they go through, and two engineers, really hot engineers, go, I can build stuff faster and better than anybody else. And then what happens is they get to a point where the product is there, and they don't know how to explain it to people, and they don't know the sales process, and they don't know how to unfold it like it's kabuki theater. Because that's what the human psyche does. You guys should all take a psych class. You should all start looking at behavioral economics book. There's one by Dan Ariely called Predictably Irrational that you guys should all pick up and read. Because the human brain, we're monkeys, right? We're filthy monkey men that just evolved. And what's funny is you think we have money, right, issues. We can teach monkeys how to use money. You can see it. You can see them online, right? Yale does all this stuff with primates at Primate Research Institute, where they teach monkeys how to trade money for things like food. And they have a sense of fairness, right? Our brains, when we purchase products, are exactly this way, right? The paradox of choice is another one that Schwartz did about how if you give people too much choice, we hate it. We don't make decisions. Give them limited choices. And these are things that I, as an engineer, didn't understand, right? So the last thing is let's go back to more Gretzky wisdom, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, you guys are at a point in your life where you don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids, you don't have, lots of, now's the time. If you want to make mistakes, if you want to try it, do it. So that's the end, and we can have a Q&A now.
We are running right up against the hour. Fortunately, you did some Q&A in class. Marc also told me that he answers his own email, so he's going to make himself available here at the end of the stage for those of you who want to come down and maybe ask a couple of questions so that you're not late for your next class. First of all, let's thank Marc for making me feel incredibly old today and taking me down memory lane.
So this is opening the door to whole new fields of study around the brain works. Here's a different thing. I mentioned CAT scanning before. This is the most advanced